So is that right?
I think so.
That right, girls?
Did it start?
It's got a square.
Okay. All right, guys. So let's open to page 77. So this week we started our writing portion. So before we can write a story, we need to brainstorm, right? All right. So we're in 77, right? Small group.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Okay. So our writing prompt in the middle says analyze character, plot, setting, or theme in ambush. Who can tell me what the word analyze means?
But not her.
Do you know, Sadie? When we analyze something, what are we doing? Looking it over. We're going in depth, right? Right, Keaton? Okay. So, we're going to start with characters. And let's flip back to page 63. In our last part, on our story elements, we actually went through and put into words our graph, the setting, character, plot. And so this page is going to help us a lot. So let's start by looking at our characters. Who is the main character in the story ambush? The narrator. And who can tell me about the narrator? What does yours say? All right, so the narrator was in a war. And what is he doing now? He's writing about it. So he's kind of doing a tribute, since he was a soldier and he was in the war. He's doing a tribute towards it, okay? So let's flip back to page 77. Kind of keep 63 bookmarked, whether you just put a pencil there or hold the page. And let's look back at our characters. So what are things that we're going to want to write in our character box? So our main character is the narrator. So main character.
Well, yeah, what happened in the beginning of the book? What was going on in the beginning of the book? Okay. What else? There's got to be more.
All right. What else do we need to know? Think about this. This is going to help us write our story. What else would we want to know about the character, Keaton? Husaidi-san. So he fought in the war, right? And what else do we know about the narrator? So he's the main character, but what else about him? He has a daughter. That's important. He has a daughter. It's important to know that he fought in the war, right? Okay, fought in the war. And all right, so those are the main ideas that we want to know about the character. This is going to help us to write about our story. So do you guys think it's important to brainstorm? Why is brainstorming important? What does it help us do? Put all the details together. Because if we just started writing about this, we wouldn't really remember this because we've read this story a while ago, right? Alright, so it's very important that we sit down and kind of break it down, and then this is going to really help us write that story more easily. Did we all get everything written down for characters? Yes. Let's move over to plot. Okay, guys, let's flip back to page 63. And Keaton, what is one thing you have written down about the plot? Yeah, so in the middle of the story, we learn about him throwing a grenade, right?
Okay.
What happens at the beginning of the story?
Tell me what's going on at the end.
What do you have written down?
Tell me what's going on in the middle. Starts at day 9. And tell me what came up again. So if you went from 1 to, go ahead.
Yeah. So have you guys ever had somebody ask you a question and it kind of gives you flashbacks to different memories?
The middle one, here's the end.
So that's what's happening here. The daughter asks the narrator if he's ever killed someone, and because he's asked that question, he flashes back to the time that it was
What happened in the middle of the book? You have to count.
So what happens at the end of the story?
Scan this.
Sadie?
And go through and scan that, okay? All right. And then we'll look at it and see how it turned out, okay?
The narrator, like, he wonders what it'd be like if he didn't throw the grenade or if it was the other way around.
Exactly. So let's flip back to page 77. And what are things we're going to want to write down about the plot?
Read that.
What's one thing? So we want to know, does this story talk about a bunch of different events or just one? Just one main event. So the most important thing we want to know about the plot is that we're focusing on one event, okay? So focus on one event. What else? The plot's about a war, right? So we want to keep in mind about the war. What else? Flashbacks. That's huge. So the story is all about flashbacks, right? So underline that because we want to make sure that we remember that the story isn't happening right now. It's not the Vietnam War. It's all about the flashbacks, okay?
What's the flashbacks?
Flashbacks. All right, guys. So let's move on to our setting. Flipping back to where we brainstormed on page 63. All right, so setting. Who can tell me what the setting is? Like, what is setting?
Where it takes place.
Where it takes place. So when and where. So is it happening past, present, or future?
No, in the past.
It's mostly present. You're right. Like at the end of the story, we kind of hear about the war, but this actual narrative story is happening now, right? He's flashing back. That's not in the past, that's now. Okay? So it's in the present, and where did it happen? What war? The Vietnam War, and where else?
Okay.
In the field. But there's one other country that it takes place in. Vietnam War, and Vietnam, and what else? The U.S., exactly. And then as we get to the middle of the story, we're only in Vietnam. And then at the end of the story, we go back to Vietnam and U.S., okay? So let's flip back to page 77 and go to our setting box. And we need to talk about the different places it happens. So, when is it happening? Past, present, or future, mainly? Present. So we have present. Now, what about where? Where is it happening? Well, it's happening in Vietnam, along with the war, and then where else? What other country? USA. Right? What else about the setting is important? What do we want to know? Yep. What about, do you think it's important to know the specific years it took place? Yeah. So Vietnam War took place between 1957 to 1975. So why is it important that we know the exact years? Yeah. When you are reading a story, isn't it more interesting when we have specifics, not just general ideas? It'd be pretty boring if we just read general ideas, right? What do you think, Keaton? Yeah? Do you like reading stories with details?
I don't like reading again, but yeah.
Yeah. You do like reading?
No.
Reading's so important. Okay, there's one other thing that we need to know about in the setting. Remember when he threw the grenade, what did he say was happening?
It felt like it froze up above him.
Because, and because there was fog, right? what do you think that fog is? Do you think there was actually fog, or do you think, what do you think?
I don't think it's actually fog.
It's not fog.
It's probably like that, like, not mist, but like from like budgie.
And what he thinks of fog as is actually a symbol. Do you guys know what symbols mean, like symbolism? So there's not actually fog, but have you ever watched movies where they have fog to kind of represent flashing back to something? Like if you go back in time, they kind of have that fog, make it look mysterious. So the fog is a representation of flashback. So it's important that we understand in the setting that fog is representing flashbacks. Is there anything else that's important for setting? Looking back at page 63, is there anything else? Nope. So do you think when we change settings, it's also changing the perspective? So you know how we went from present to past? So one important thing to understand is when we change settings, we are changing narrator's thoughts. So when he's flashing back in Vietnam, those are thinking back to what happened before. And yep. So when we change the setting, we're changing the narrative thoughts. Right? So when he's in Vietnam, that's a flashback, right? And then when he's telling about how he felt, that's present day. Does that make sense? So flashbacks are past or present? Past, yep. All right, guys, let's look back at page 63 for our theme. Who can tell me one thing about the theme?
People sometimes regret the decisions they made in their earlier life.
Exactly. So have you guys ever made a decision and then looked back on it and kind of regretted it and wish you would have maybe handled it differently?
Yeah.
What do you think, Keaton? Yeah? So this story, although it's talking about the war, and we haven't fought in the war, and I hope none of us have killed anyone, we can still relate to the story, can't we? How so? How can we relate to the story? Keaton?
Having flashbacks, I don't know.
Yeah, having flashbacks, thinking about decisions that we made and regretting them. So let's flip back to page 77. And the first idea about theme is what? What did Sadie say?
People sometimes regretting the decisions they made in their earlier life.
Yep, so for theme, let's write down regret decisions we made in our earlier lives. So regret decisions. Regret past decisions is simplifying it down. And then there's one other point about the theme that we need to understand. What's the main topic of this story?
Okay, so what happened at the end? So we got that.
Keaton, stay with me. What's the main idea and theme of this story?
The heroes and he wish he had made better decisions. I don't know.
In war. So we might say that in war, soldiers regret decisions may have made. Exactly. So these are the two main ideas for theme. Does everybody have those written down? Keaton?
Did she make you answer these?
I don't know.
Huh?
Did she make you answer these?
No.
Are they okay with that? I thought I asked her because she's busy.
Alright, put your pencils down once you've finished writing about the theme. Yep, we're gonna finish this bottom part. Alright, let's all look at choose your topic. It says select one of your ideas from the idea web, then complete the sentence. I am going to analyze, so what did we say analyze means?
Oh, no, they got one more, right?
Yeah.
One more.
Yeah, the monkey Jane
It comes out in-
Get more information, exactly, go more in depth. So each of you need to choose one of these. Are you going to analyze the character, the plot, the setting, or the theme? And you can each pick something different. What are you most interested in? What do you want to analyze? Write that down on the first line. Keaton, which one do you want to analyze? What do you think would be the most interesting? Setting? That's a good one. What did you choose? Character? What did you choose? Theme? Okay. Alright, and I'm going to analyze blank, what you guys chose, in what? The short story Ambush. So the story Ambush. That goes here. And who is it by? Who is the author of Ambush? Who is the author of Ambush?
Huh?
Tim O'Brien, yep. So let's write down the author. Once you've finished reading, guys, you can do your reading logs. Have you all done them?
Yeah.
And then the last part says, I want to examine this element because. So you're going to write down why you chose theme, why you chose character, and why you chose setting. So why did you choose setting, Keaton? There's a lot about it, exactly. So a lot of information. Why did you choose the character? Is it maybe something you're interested in? Maybe you can write that down. You want to learn more about it, something you're interested in. What did you say, Sadie?
Because a lot of people look at things and
Exactly, so we can learn more about that. That's a good idea. So once you finish that, put down your pencils. Are you all done? Charlie feels suddenly shy. She doesn't talk in group anymore. She doesn't talk in. How would we fix that? She doesn't talk in group. She doesn't talk in the group. Good. Alright guys, so do you now understand why it's important to brainstorm? Yep. So what we just did today is going to help us write our actual story, and we'll learn more about that tomorrow, okay? Make sense?